Welcome back to the dark side. I'm your host, Brianna.
And I'm Dyson.
And this is Dark Adaptation.
Yeah, it is.
This is part 2 of episode 56. You know what that means? What are you doing here if you didn't listen to part 1, you silly goose?
Dumb fucker.
Okay.
Stupid idiot.
You stupid fuck.
You knuckle-dragging Neanderthal. Get back there. Go. Shoot. Shoot. Get the fuck out of here. Leave.
Oh my god.
And then come back for another entertaining segment of the series.
And then come back.
Love you.
Kissed his microphone right on it. Boom in the shot.
Boom in the shot.
Yeah, part 2. Hopefully the much anticipated. I hope that everyone enjoyed part 1 and is like, ooh, let's go, it's Monday, time for part 2. What happens I get carried away. Why do I always have to sing?
I don't know. You're just slap happy now because you've just been frying your brain with this. This is probably the most in-depth coverage of this fucking thing ever.
I hope so.
I'd put money on it.
This thing could have its whole own podcast.
Like, honestly, I'm surprised that we don't have a fucking cork board up in this room at this point with just string going from Igor to fucking Agent K or whatever. Sasha K.
Agent K.
I said Agent K because I saw a photo of him you shared. And I'm like, that man is a disguise. It's not even a person. It's just a disguise. So anyway, I had to...
And I probably would if there was wall space in here, but there's no wall space because I am a little pack rat and I have tons of things all on display.
It's very you.
Every single wall. Like literally, look. Oh my god. There's no wall space in this bitch.
No, there's really not.
I'm a collector.
Oh god. You know what? Just go whole horror movie villain on us. Why don't we just get you a room and you put your collection in there and then so you don't feel like you're not showing it off enough. That's the first thing you introduce guests to.
Come to my hole.
Come see my collection. And then it's obviously downstairs in the basement somewhere.
And then I turn around and lock the door behind me as I leave with them in the room and tell them I have to go return some videotapes.
And every door has to have an obnoxious sealed container opening sound. It has to be sliding glass doors that just go. Psh,
I like it.
Psh. Yeah.
Great idea.
Yep.
Okay, now I need a bigger place for this, especially a basement. I mean, it's my apartment.
I can't believe I gave you away the basement. You know what? You take the other stuff. I want a man cave. Fuck off.
Fuck off. Okay, so not only do you have to fuck off if you haven't listened to part 1, I also have to fuck off. So let me pass my laptop over to Dyson, and he can tell this.
Oh, you know what? Rain check. I think I've got three more episodes to go or something like that.
No. This is part 2, and I think it'll end at part 3. Fairly certain. Confident-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this is a continuation of last week's episode, which was requested by Summer. Thanks, Summer. If you listening right now, if you have a case or topic recommendation, please send it to us on Instagram.
Yo!
A Dark Adaptation Podcast. Or you can email us at darkadaptationpodcast@gmail.com. And then you can hear a really wonderful deep dive, in-depth coverage of the case you want to hear. So that's my promise to you. Okay, let's not waste any more time. Let's go. I've got so much to tell you, so let's start this bitch off with a recap.
All right.
So, Igor Dyatlov assembled a team of hikers to join him on a trek with the goal of reaching Gora Otorten, which is the mountain, the peak of the mountain. Mm-hmm. Now, all group members were from the same university, which UPI, and they were Igor Ego? Yep.
Ego.
Nope. Igor. That was another
The same
slip.
thing, honestly. It's his alter ego. Just really on the nose. My alter ego is ego. It's just whole ego.
That would be you. Igor, Shenko, Krivo, Koli, Rustic, Tibo, Yuri, Zina, Lydia, and Slavik. So Slavik had to drop out. So they got this mysterious stranger put in their group at the last minute, Sasha K, who seemed to be lying about his identity. You know, he would like get his birthday wrong and other things like his siblings and stuff. And it was really weird. And, you know, he does have that interesting past involving the military in World War II. So, you know, and also Tyson said Agent K.
He's not a real person.
This trip was messy from the get-go. They had a vague route that they were going to take when they were out there trekking around. They did some sloppy packing at first. They were rushing around. There was encounters with drunks and police, and Igor was kind of showing that he had a bit of a pattern of, I wrote deception, but like I don't want to be so harsh, but you know, he never sent the route to the SRC for approval. He would forget to buy supplies. He didn't buy the right amount of train tickets. You know, we had Lydia who was like hiding under a seat.
Yeah.
He never telegrammed any check-ins with the sports club like he was supposed to, and he didn't seem to know when the group would be back to Visay, saying like, oh, we'll be back on February 12th. And then when Yuri Yudin left, he was like, I don't actually know, so don't count on it.
Yeah.
And then when we ended last week's episode, Yuri Yudin, who had a history of poor health, had to leave the trip because his sciatica was acting up, and he ended up returning to District 41 with Uncle Slava and the horse. Don't forget about that. Mm-hmm. And the Dyatlov Group continued on without Yuri. So this is now part 2. We are continuing Dyatlov Group's trip. Then we will be talking about that fateful night, and we'll be discussing the recoveries of the bodies.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. The first real day of hiking was tough. Backpacks are heavy, people are tired, and the girls were sick of the boys being rude and making stupid jokes like stupid boys do.
I don't know what you mean. I make sophisticated jokes.
Okay. The group pitched their tent at 5:30 p.m. The group pitched their tent at 5:30 p.m. on January 28th, 10 kilometers from their starting point in 2nd Northern and 7 kilometers from their next point, Ospia River. Since it's their first night pitching the tent, they had to figure out who slept at the one end of the tent near the stove, which no one wants to because it's hot as hell, and then who sleeps near the entrance. So Krivo is chosen to sleep next to the stove, and Sasha K is chosen to sleep near the entrance. After only minutes, Krivo gets up and he moves, quote, cursing and accusing us of treason. After that, they, Krivo and Sasha K, argued about something for a long time, but at the end, all was quiet.
Okay.
If you'll remember from part 1, Krivo and Sasha K were also the ones that had to sleep on the floor when they were, like, traveling.
Yeah.
So they're
just getting the shit out of their stick like, every time.
What the fuck? I'm sick of this shit.
Yeah, they're probably not getting decent night's sleep now, so they're both getting agitated, and they're gonna fucking murder people.
I do talk about that later at some point. Like, no one got a good night's sleep, let alone being next to the stove or the entrance.
I would rather the entrance.
Oh, yeah.
Because the stove, you're gonna heat up, but like it's not like you're gonna be like warm
all night.
Sweaty.
You're
gonna be like
ill.
You're gonna be like ill. You're gonna get like fucking heat sickness at that point.
Ew. The next day, January 29th, which was the second day of their hike, and it was also Shenko's 21st birthday. The weather was great that day. The group followed a Manzi ski trail toward Ospia River. They spent that night next to the river off the path of the ski trail, which means that they were making pretty good time so far, because that was the plan that day, was to get to Ospia River. January 30th, third day of the trek, the group starts the day at 8:30 a.m. following the Ospia River, and they see a lot of Manzi signs. Quote, Manzi, Manzi, Manzi. This word comes up more and more often in our conversations. They have a written language and leave characteristic signs on forest trees. There is a slogan for our campaign, in a country of mysterious signs. If we knew these letters, it would be possible without any doubt to go down the path, confident that it would lead us to the right place. Here, the trail takes us to the shores of the river. We lose track. In the future, the trail follows the left bank of Ospia River, but we are going through the woods. At the first opportunity, we will turn back to the river.
Okay. But they're going through the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Just going out into the woods. You know what? That is extra fucking shitty.
Yeah.
You don't want to ever be in a situation where like we went the wrong way. We should have stayed on the bank and we just cut into woods.
And why would you
through it?
And like why would you do that? Anytime you're like lost in a jungle, woods, forest, whatever, don't they always say to follow a river like downstream? Because you're guaranteed to get to some sort of settlement.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Like I don't know why they weren't just following the track. Like it is Manzi language and signs and stuff, so they don't really know what it says in a lot of cases, but those are obviously markers that are there so Manzi people can follow them.
Yeah, I know. I just don't understand what the fuck they were thinking. Like, why did they just suddenly cut through the like? We both go walking in the woods tons of times and stuff, and like we're not ever just gonna be like, let's cut through the brush because we know exactly what that means. It's fucking unpleasant.
Yeah,
you're gonna get lost. It's super disorienting and super hard to get through.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why they were like, fuck this neatly fucking groomed path that we could go down.
I know.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe a good idea would have been if they properly planned the route before they went.
Mm-hmm. What was that you between episodes you were like, oh, Igor's like that bitch from The Descent.
Oh yeah, just when I was researching, I forget exactly why I said that. Just because of this, he wasn't sending any telegrams about their check-in points or some. I don't remember exactly.
Didn't really tell them like where they were going. Like fucking kind of lied about it and wasn't approved.
Yeah, I don't know if he lied exactly about the route. He definitely did not send in a route they made for approval because they were given their route book and it was for trail number 5.
Mm-hmm.
But that means that that's like already a trail.
Yeah,
so yeah, I said that Igor's reminded me of the woman from The Descent who tells the like park rangers and stuff that they're going to go spelunking in this cave, but she actually takes them to a totally different one that isn't really mapped yet because they want to be the quote first to discover it.
Yeah.
And it fucks them because no one knows that they're there.
Yeah.
So. And
it sounds like that's what's going to fucking happen with this group. They don't know where the fuck they're going. It's a mess.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I just wish that they would have made a plan instead of just wandering around. So this day, January 30th, the day started off sunny, but the wind was getting stronger, and later it started to snow and the temperature dropped. The night was minus 26 degrees Celsius, which is apparently normal for this area, but still.
Well, yeah, I'm sure because they're in a mountainous area in Russia.
Yeah, they're in Siberia. Yeah. So they stopped at 5 p.m. to set up camp. Tensions were high. There was arguments over who does what, who's slowing down the group. Xena accidentally burned Thibaut's mittens and Krivo's jacket in the fire, so they were pissed about that. And Sasha K was getting more and more frustrated, especially with Igor, who was pretty hard on the group. Igor wanted to continue this really good pace. He wanted to make good time and cover a lot of distance, but he would call people out if they were slowing them down, and he would tell Sasha K that he was slow, and Sasha K is like, I'm fucking older than you. This is hard.
Yeah.
And like you had said, nobody ever got a good sleep. So they would go to bed late. They would wake up really early. Sasha K is older. It's hard on his body. And Igor would, quote, punish members who slowed down the group. So if you were the one that like was, lagging behind or not, whatever the case is for slowing down the group, then you would get like a punishment, which is like you're the one that has to set up the tent, or you're the one that has to get firewood, or you're the one that has to set up the stove, which was like this whole elaborate thing.
I would fucking wedgie Igor. Like I would just end up bullying him. Like, this is ridiculous. If someone starts like trying to like pick on people because they're slower, I'd fucking just punch them.
He's a control freak. The next day, January 31st, the weather was infinitely worse. It was very windy. There's snow blowing everywhere. Few trees around to block the wind because they were out of the forest now. They're along the river and they're starting to like cut through the open land to get to the mountain. Mm-hmm. And because it's so snowy and windy, there's low visibility. So you can't see like 100 meters in front of you. It's just a whiteout. The group arrived at the edge of a highland area and began preparing to climb the mountain, which was Kholit Sikal, which means it's Manzi, and it means dead mountain.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm. In a wooded valley, they stored extra food and equipment so that, one, you can use it on your trip back once you return from the mountain, and two, you're climbing a fucking mountain, so it's less weight to carry. Mm-hmm. And it's really normal for big groups like this to have a little area that they designate as their storage. So they stored all of the equipment and then they settled for the night because the weather was so bad. They didn't want to immediately start their ascent up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day, Igor decided that the group would continue to Gora Otorten without descending from the pass. And the standard route was to go, like to get up to Otorten was from Lazva River, but Igor didn't want to do that. Instead, he wanted the group to continue on the pass of Kholit Sikal instead of going down to follow the river to the proper place to ascend. He wanted them to just continue on the mountain pass.
Oh my god.
So on February 1st, the group got Dyson is holding his face.
No,
like
I'm
when you
gonna
put
have
your
a conniption,
fingers on your
man.
nose, like, oh my god.
Like, you know how quickly I get lost in shit, right?
Yeah.
So I deeply appreciate the importance of finding the proper place to do your ascent, where there's a water landmark that you can follow. And
Yeah.
these idiots are like, no.
Because you would normally, typically, if you were going this route, you should follow Lazva River because at the top of this mountain area that they're going, there's a lake, and that lake is the source of the river. So you follow that river to get up to that part of the mountain.
Yeah, and then you can get back down too. Yeah, it's just perfect.
He's wants to go up this other mountain, so the Kholit Sikal, in order to use that pass that's connecting over to the other one, but that is not the route you should take.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. So on February 1st, the group got a late start to the morning, moving through the mountain pass, and they only covered a couple kilometers. And Igor's plan, like I said, had been to use this pass to get to the other side of the mountain, and then they would make camp there for the night. But that didn't happen. Because as they were going through this pass and trying to get over, the weather got worse. So there was a huge snowstorm. There was no visibility. And the group decided that they had to set up camp right there on the mountain slope of Kholit Sikal.
Yep.
So they didn't have firewood. They would only have the stove to keep them warm, but that wasn't set up this night.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really not the smartest decision.
No, it is super unprepared.
It was likely done so that the group didn't lose any altitude by descending from the mountain so that they could camp somewhere better. It was easier for them, I guess, without losing their altitude to just camp there. In the morning, they would already be on higher grounds and then they would just continue. But this decision, sadly, proved fatal as the hikers would never be seen alive again.
Oh my god.
Do you like horror movies?
Do you like hanging out with your friends?
Do you like having a laugh?
Do you like podcasts?
Well, you should check out our podcast, Spoils of Horror.
We're not a review show.
We're a horror movie hangout where we talk about movies that are lost, forgotten, popular, and bizarre, all in the scary realm.
You can listen to our podcast while you're doing just about anything.
You could be washing your dishes.
You could be washing your cat.
You could be washing your genitals. All forms of genitals accepted.
We are a fully inclusive genitalia show.
Yes, we are the #1 ideal podcast for washing your genitals.
Our genital Yelp reviews are unsurpassed.
5.5 stars.
You don't want to know where that half came from. It's,
Now that you know that, check us out on all major platforms.
you can search for Spoils of Horror on all social media sites
Come and hang out with us. We'd love to see you.
and your genitals.
Bye.
When February 12th passed and no telegrams were received back home, no one panicked. It's normal that there's delays of a few days, especially with expeditions as intense as this one. So,
And also, there's always that one guy going around yelling, "Nobody panic! Nobody panic!
everyone's like, "Oh, thank you, man."
Serenity now!"
That's panic.
Oh, that's panic. Okay.
Okay, but panic did set in around February 17th when the hikers' families knew something was seriously wrong when they didn't hear anything yet from the hikers. I feel like I said hikers a lot. So
You're doing a great job for a very, very in-depth dive into a tragic hiking accident.
thank you. I hope that wasn't facetious.
No, it wasn't. That was genuine.
Thank you. Okay, so the first person that was bothered by the delay of the hikers was Coley's sister. Her name's Rima. And she sent telegrams to UPI Sports Club urging them to start a rescue mission. And she tried contacting the Sverdlovsk Sports Club chairman, Gordo, as well. But
Gordo!
yes, I was hoping you would do that. Listen, Gordo. Gordo!
If anyone has watched any of Kitchen Nightmares, you will appreciate that.
The Black Pearl episode.
How many times do you think YouTube had tried to feed that one episode to us?
It was every time.
Yeah.
Every time I watched one episode of Kitchen Nightmares, it was like, hey, you want to watch The Black Pearl again? The Black Pearl. I could probably recite the... Okay, no.
Oh, no, please don't.
So she tried to reach out to the chairman, Gordo, at Sverdlov Sports Club, but he never answered. So she called the head of the sports club and was assured that there's nothing to worry about. He received a telegram that the group was delayed a week, and they were on their way back. Like, stop worrying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is debated whether he just assumed that they were delayed, because, it's normal, or if he mixed up the groups because he recently received a telegram about delays, but it was from the Blinov Group. If you'll remember, Dyatlov Group and Blinov Group were traveling up there together, but they were doing different treks, but it's possible that he got it mixed up.
Which just makes it way worse because, like, I don't know. I feel like if a family member came out to me, not like my family member, but, came up and was like, I'm really worried about, like, my brother and we haven't heard from them. Like, I don't know. I feel like I would check to make sure I had the right group before I reassured them they're on their way.
I feel like I would too, but whatever happened here,
who knows?
It's Rima wasn't going to give up though. She was very, very insistent, and it was like reaching out to every single person. Like, you better fucking look for my brother and his friends.
Mm-hmm.
She was like grabbing people by the neck. Okay, that was artistic freedom. I don't know that she did
Choking
that.
people out.
Just Darth Vader all of a sudden. So on February 20th, UPI called a meeting and agreed that a rescue mission was necessary. They telegrammed the Blinov Group, who were about to return home from their trek, and they told them, like, yo, you gotta stay where you are and wait for reinforcements because we got some shit happening.
Mm-hmm.
So February 21st, more teams of UPI students were dispatched to help with the search. One of these groups...
Sorry.
What? Oops, sorry,
I
was
was
loud.
expecting to hear, like, more teams of officers or more teams of search rescue.
Not yet.
Get them, boys, and it's just a bunch of nerdy dorks ready to climb up a mountain.
All the UPI students were like, that was my boys and two girls.
Oh my god.
And Sasha K.
Yeah, it's Sasha K. Who I don't know, man. Something's weird about Sasha K.
Yeah.
He just reminds me of that one Simpsons episode where they're trying to teach recruits how to be like police officers, and the one guy's like, "Fuck this, man! What do we?" She's like, "Where do I get my fucking gun?" And then Chief Wiggum's like, "I told you not until you tell us your name."
Yep.
That's Sasha K to me.
Don't you know how many awards he has?
Yeah, go look him up and tell me he doesn't look like the villain in Rocky and Bullwinkle.
He does look like a villain.
Yeah.
Mustache doesn't help. You're
Yeah.
right. Maybe I should have chosen a more becoming photo.
And it's not an insult. I'm not insulting this dude. I'm just saying he had the mustache.
You heard it here. So, contrary to what Dyson is wishing that it was officers, it's more UPI students that are dispatched to help with the search. And one of these groups was Slobstov Group. And the head of the regional hiking club, Evgeny Maslenikov, oversaw coordinating the search. And he worked closely with Army Colonel Yuri Yortyakov, who was in charge of overall logistics and helicopter support. So they did get some big guns.
Yeah,
in
they got
there.
helicopter support. That's pretty dope.
How else are you supposed to get to the mountains quickly?
That's true. Yeah.
February 22nd, 4 Manzi hunters were hired to help look for Dyatlov Group, and Moscow sent several, quote, specialists. That's it. That's all I know.
That's the recovery team to make sure they get there before the Manzi group so they can hide the fucking evidence of whatever Sasha K was really up to.
UPI's rescue groups, including Slobstov Group, went by airplane from Sverdlovsk to the military airfield of Ivdel with equipment and weekly supply of products. And the next day, February 23rd, in poor visibility, Slobstov Group was flown in 2 helicopters to a mountain peak east of Gora Otorten. They were trying to get as close to Gora Otorten as they could, since this was supposed to be the final destination of Dyatlov Group, and they wanted to see if Dyatlov Group had been there. But after 5 hours of searching, there was no tracks, ski trails, trail markers, nothing like that was found. So it didn't show that Dyatlov Group had made it to Otorten. So the next day, February 24th, Slobstov Group decided to look for tracks farther down the mountain into the taiga, which is like a forested area, and then south to the valley along Ospia River, where they knew that Dyatlov was intending to create his storage site.
Right.
And they know a lot of this because Yuri Yudin is alive and bailed on the group.
Yeah.
So along the travels, when they're planning and talking about stuff, Yuri Yudin would have been a part of that. So he's able to kind of give them a general area to at least be looking for Dyatlov Group.
Yeah.
On February 25th, on the bank of the Ospia River, they found some old, narrow sport ski tracks that they knew didn't belong to the Manzi, and they were made by a number of people. So with that discovery on February 26th, Slobstov Group was very confident that the tracks belonged to Dyatlov Group, and with that, this group split into 3 divisions to search. So Division 1 went south to search for more tracks, Division 2 searched for Dyatlov Group's storage site, and Division 3 followed the trajectory of the ski tracks up Kolitsikal. So they're on the right track.
Okay.
The group leader, as you'll know, the group leaders are what's named the group, have what is the Hashadhapa?
Yeah.
Slobs-
Sounded like we were changing the channel on FM radio there for a second.
Yeah, it did. Okay, so it's...
AM, sorry.
whatever. This group that is searching right now that I'm mostly talking about, Slobstov Group, that is the name of the last name of the guy.
I know.
So
It's just, I don't know how you're even saying it.
Slobtsov.
No, I mean, like,
Slobstov.
I would flub that every time, 100% of the time. I'm not even going to try.
So the group leader, Slobstov, he was in Division 3, so he's the one that's going up Kolitsikal. And as Division 3 made their way up the mountain and through the pass, they discovered a tent on the slope. Slobstov recognized it immediately as belonging to Dyatlov Group because Slobstov was one of the people who constructed the tent 3 years earlier at UPI. And it was a very distinct tent because it was made from 2 4-person tents, making it longer and larger. And it had this very distinct double seam in the middle where they were attached.
It's a Frankenball tent.
Pretty much. So as soon as Slobsov saw it, he was like, oh, fuck. That's definitely their tent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the tent is where the mystery begins because whatever happened that night started here. So, this campsite was located on the Norst?
We're going to the Norst.
It's located on the northeast slope of Kolitsikal. The entrance of the tent was facing south. The tent was set up on a pad of flattened snow with 8 pairs of skis on top of the padded snow for, like, support and insulation. In parts, the tent had a layer of 15 to 20 centimeters of snow, which is 6 to 7 inches on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was concluded that the general appearance and density of the snow is not a result of an avalanche, but just from snow being blown around by the wind. Next to the tent, a ski was sticking straight up out of the snow. Again, if there's an avalanche, that ski would be gone. And putting up one ski like that is a really common indicator for people who are out hiking in these sort of terrains as like a marker. Like when they went south in that wooded area to put their storage site, it's marked with one ski and like a little something sticking on top of it so that they know where to look for like the buried storage stuff. Okay. So it's normal to have one ski propped up like that as a little marker.
Cool. I wouldn't have thought that would be what they'd choose to stick in the ground, seeing as it's like your mode of transportation.
Well, on expeditions like this, everyone always brings extra skis.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
There's extra skis in case yours fucks up and breaks, extra skis that you can carry behind you to haul some of your stuff, and extra skis to use as a marker, an important marker for your storage and places you want to go back to.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, on the side of the tent, okay, this is wild. On the side of the tent, on top of 10 centimeters or 5 inches of snow, there was a working flashlight sitting on top. Slobsov picked it up, turned it on, and stated later in a witness testimony, quote, "It was strange that while there was a layer of snow under the flashlight, there was no snow on top of it, and it was snowed lightly around it on either side."
Huh. That's fucking weird.
And it was working.
Yeah. Like it wasn't on.
No. It was just sitting there.
Okay, so that makes no sense.
No.
It's not like it melted anything.
No. Slobsov picked it up and like turned it on and off, and it's like a working flashlight sitting on top of all of the snow.
That's so fucked.
Inside the tent, like they had to like kind of brush the snow away, prop it up because it was just, kind of flattened. It'd been there for like 15 days at this point. Mm-hmm. Inside of it, there's 9 backpacks, 9 parkas, almost all of the group's boots, jackets, warm clothing like gloves, hats. There's 3 compasses, a pocket watch, 2 knives in Thibaut and Krivo's parkas. There's another knife in Coley's black leather sheath. There's 3 axes, 2 large and 1 small, and all the things for camping. So like there's stove, food, utensils, toiletries, notebooks, itineraries, documents, cameras, everything is inside of this tent.
It sounds like almost damn near everything required to survive, right down to like basic clothing.
Yes.
Was still in this tent.
Yes. So the setup and contents of the tent show that Dyatlov Group was in their usual nightly routine. Everything seems orderly and normal until something happened that literally made them flee this tent. The search group noticed that the tent had been cut in parts, and they found multiple sets of footprints leading away from the tent that showed that the group left the area in socks and bare feet.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Whoa.
The footprints showed that members of the group walked in a single file with a tall person walking in the back. So that was likely Shenko or Sasha K because they were the tallest. And overall, the path gave an impression of a, quote, organized and uneventful descent down the slope of the mountain. Several footprint tracks would kind of like deviate from the single file, but then rejoin the group. But it wasn't this pandemonium of running for your life or those long strides because you're trying to run
It was
or
organized.
falling or something. It was this single file, organized line down the mountain.
That's weird.
I know. So 450 meters down the slope, or 0.2 miles, this is still Kolitsikal, away from the tent. Following that trail of footprints, a second flashlight was found, but this one was switched on and the battery was depleted completely.
Okay.
Discovering Dyatlov Group's tent full of literally all of their belongings, but no sign of the hikers except for a trail of footprints leading away from the tent was very disturbing to Slobsov and his little division there.
Mm-hmm.
And from the state of the tent to what was found inside, the scene showed that Dyatlov Group left their tent without wearing warm winter clothes like the parkas, hats, gloves, or boots. And I think it's fair to say that only a serious threat would motivate a group of 9 experienced hikers to urgently leave their shelter in an isolated area on a mountain in the freezing winter, ill-prepared to retreat down the mountain slope instead of facing whatever was there at the campsite.
Yeah.
So, obviously, they chose to flee their campsite, but the tracks showed that they headed northeast down towards the Tega, not south to where they had more supplies at their storage site. If they headed south, they would have gone towards their storage site, where they had literally 120 pounds worth of food.
Mm-hmm.
There was medical supplies, there was dry firewood. Igor had boots there. There was an extra pair of ski boots. There was batteries, a lamp. Like, why wouldn't you go south if you had to flee the campsite?
Yeah.
You should... What? And you specifically set up your tent with the entrance facing south. So you know what direction south is. Why would they go northeast in a single file line?
Makes no sense.
So, I know. At some point along here, the storage site was found later by searchers, but like, that's boring. We don't need to get into that.
Yeah.
It was found. It was undisturbed. Nothing had gotten to it. The ski was still sticking up as the little indicator of it. And that's how we know what was at this storage site.
Mm-hmm.
So food and medical supplies and boots and firewood and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So bizarre. So Division 3 of Slobsov Group was obviously very confused by what they were looking at.
Yeah.
They were worried about their friends because these are all UPI students. So they took 3 cameras from the tent, the group diary, the flask that had some vodka in it, and some other small stuff. And they hurried down the mountain to their group's camp at the base of the mountain to report back.
They still took stuff like that. That's fucking so weird to me. It's like you just picked up like your diary of all things instead of your like jacket.
No, Slobsov Group, Division 3.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry, never mind.
Yeah, they grabbed the diary, 3 cameras, a flask, and other small things.
Right, okay, yeah. For a second I thought
No.
and I was like, what the fuck is that? Okay, all right,
So
gotcha.
No. This is the rescue group.
Yeah.
That finds the tent and is like, what the fuck are we looking at? We have to get back to base, report what we found, but let's bring the cameras, the diary, the flask.
The empty flask, am I right?
No, there's vodka in it.
No. The empty flask.
Hey, listen, you'll get to it. At 6 p.m., Slobsov Group radioed about the tent discovery, and UPI informed them that a large search group would be dropped off by helicopter to join them, and among them, a detective and Colonel Orchukov. So that night, Slobsov Group discussed what they found, and they made plans for searching the next day. And among the Dyatlov Group belongings, they had found their train tickets and money. And most of Slobsov Group took this to be a good sign, assuming, quote, criminals were not involved in the group's disappearance since they would have stolen everything of value.
Mm-hmm.
So while they were, making their plans and eating dinner, Slobsov raised a toast for the health of his friends with the flask taken from the tent and expressed hope that they would be found soon. And one of the guys in this rescue group is a local, and his name is Ivan Pashin. And he was apparently less optimistic about finding everyone alive. So he suggested that they should probably drink for the dead rather than the living.
Dude.
Quote, the UPI students in the group found his words so offensive and almost beat him up. The thought of their friends simply perishing like that in the Siberian taiga was still incomprehensible.
Mm-hmm.
They almost beat him up.
So unnecessary.
I know, unless you know something.
Yeah, unless you know something.
So they were like, fuck you, that's rude. These are our friends. We truly believe that they're alive. They're just lost, and we're going to find them. Okay? Ivan, you fucking dick.
I'm genuinely surprised that they didn't beat him up. Or I'd be less surprised to find out they did beat him up, just no one reported it because snitches get stitches.
We threatened to beat him up. We wanted to, but nothing happened. And he's sitting there, like, concussed with a black eye.
In a snowbank.
He's actually just, I was going to say, he's just posted up, obviously incapacitated in a snowbank, but they put sunglasses on them so no one can tell.
Yeah.
So we know the list of all of the belongings that's found in the tent because on March 3rd, the tent and the belongings were transported to Ivdel Department of Internal Affairs to be photographed and protocoled. So after photographing the tent that had, all of the cuts in it and documenting the cuts and whatever else, the initial prevailing theory of investigators was that people surprise attacked Dyatlov Group, cutting into the tent in the process. That all changed when some random ass lady in the department was there to mend one of the investigators' uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
And she just took one look at the tent and said the cuts are made from inside.
What?
Yes.
Why?
I guess because she's mending uniforms, so she's some sort of seamstress and knows all about cuts in shit. So
okay.
I guess this is the story, that one lady came in to mend a uniform, one look at the tent and said, those cuts didn't come from outside in, they came from inside out. And that's all it took. Forensic analysis apparently after that confirmed that was the case, and the investigation changed entirely.
Oh, okay.
Because
it really would have made a lot of sense if someone surprise attacked that tent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But you have this mystery lady that just comes in and is like, no, those are from inside out.
Yeah, because to me it was making a lot of sense. Even the weird ass
the footprints walking single file, like someone was leading them.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was making a lot of sense to me, and I was going like, okay, well, they're just trying to find their way back with those flashlights.
Yeah, or it's not their flashlights.
Yeah.
We don't know whose flashlights those are.
Yeah.
There was one source that said the one on top of the tent was Igor's, but I don't know. That's the only place I read it. I have no idea how we would know whose flashlight's what unless you're like 9 years old and wrote in permanent marker that it's your flashlight. So
it just corresponds with their underwear.
Yeah. So this part drives me insane. This one lady comes in and says, no, those slits came from inside out, not outside in. And they're like, oh, you son of a bitch, you're right. Okay, let's change the course of this. Now we know that something scared them or whatever, and they're the ones that cut their way out of the tent.
Suspect.
It's just very weird.
Very suspect.
obviously we have no idea really, because like who the fuck knows what happened up
Yeah,
there?
who the fuck was that lady?
But what the fuck happened up there in the tent and on the mountain, and did it come from inside out or outside in? Like, we don't really know. There's no other details about how forensic analysis confirmed that the cuts went from inside out, other than apparently there's some marks on the tent that look like starter cuts, like they wanted to cut out but didn't, so they just kind of made a mark, whereas the other ones actually pierced all of the way through. So like, I don't fucking know. I just think it's weird that one random lady whose job is just to come in and fix a uniform is like, no, that's not how it went.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, fuck, okay.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
So whatever, I don't know. I just think we need to be skeptical of this.
I would say that's the weakest link so far in this mystery.
Okay, so the hope that Dyatlov Group had that they would find their friends alive was extremely short-lived, because literally the next day, on February 27th, 4 bodies from Dyatlov Group were found.
Oh.
So the first 2 bodies that were found were that of Shenko and Krivo, and they were 1.5 kilometers or 0.9 miles from the tent. So if we visualize this,
That's a good amount of distance. Oh, 0.9, sorry.
0.9 miles or 1.5 kilometer.
Yeah.
Not 9 miles, Jesus
Yeah, I know.
Christ.
I'm slow today.
1.5 kilometers, aka 9 miles, just because,
Mm-hmm.
some measurement. I can picture a kilometer more than a mile, but then when it comes to like meters versus feet, I can picture feet better than I can meters.
I'm the exact same way. I can
So-
100% capture kilometer, and then feet is easy because it's like ballpark the size of your foot. Like, it's not that hard. But did they make you in school run around the racetrack and 4 laps was a kilometer?
No.
Oh.
Wait. Yes, 4.
Yeah.
1 time all the way around was 400 meters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't want to do this.
No, don't.
Okay, so for visualization purposes, to find Shenko and Krivo, their bodies, 1.5 kilometers / 0.9 miles from the tent. So we're leaving that tent down the mountain slope. We're following that trail of footprints that are going northeast.
Mm-hmm.
You're down the mountain slope. You're headed towards the forested area. And then right at the edge of the forest, there's this huge cedar tree. And their bodies are underneath that cedar tree.
Okay.
So just right into the forested area. It's not like heavily forested because it's a fucking mountain area.
It's
but
just noticeably a forest in a mountainous area. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be sparse, I'd imagine.
It's not like incredibly sparse, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the searchers also found the visible remains of a small fire, and the branches on the cedar tree were broken 5 meters or 16 feet up, suggesting that someone had climbed up this cedar tree looking for something, likely as a better vantage point to see the camp or to look for others in their group, because the side of the cedar tree where all of the branches were broken was facing the tent.
Okay.
So next to the fire remains, it's just a little tiny fire, were the bodies of Shenko and Krivo. They were laying side by side. Shenko was face down and Krivo was face up, and both had brownish purple complexion. Shenko was wearing a couple light shirts, shorts, boxers, and wool socks. No shoes. The autopsy of Shenko showed that hair was burned on the right side of his head. His right ear, nose, and lips were covered with blood. His upper lip was swollen. His right cheek was covered with gray foam. There was gray liquid coming from his open mouth, likely from pulmonary edema, which means that there's fluid in your lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Small bruises and abrasions on both shoulders. His right armpit, both forearms near his elbows. His left forearm had been bleeding, and both of his shins And both of his hands also had small abrasions, along with swelling and bleeding. And all fingertips were dark purple, to the point that if he had survived, they would have to be amputated from frostbite.
Right.
And his cause of death was hypothermia.
Okay, well, I could guess the last part in that.
So it's interesting, though.
Part of his hair was burned off.
Yeah, next to this tiny remains of a small fire.
Right, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It's just weird because their bodies were kind of under some snow, like snow-blown snow, but there's this visible remains of a small fire.
Yeah.
And small fire. There wouldn't have been dry firewood out in the middle of a fucking forest in the mountains. It would have all been wet. So the only chance you would have had is lighting like little twigs and shit on fire. You're not going to get this huge burning fire, which is important in a minute. So, important notes from Schenko's autopsy. The amount of urine in his bladder was only 150 milliliters. And this volume of urine is smaller than what is typically found in hypothermic deaths. It's like next to nothing. So, also, the foamy gray fluid that is coming out of his mouth started this speculation that before death, someone or something was pressing on his chest cavity, because you have fluid in your lungs. That's not a normal, not seen in hypothermic deaths.
Yeah.
So it's obviously some sort of trauma to your chest. So this could also be from a fall, like let's say 5 meters or 16 feet out of a tree.
Right, yeah.
But he didn't have any other like major head trauma or anything like that. He just had this weird liquid in his lungs. So people don't like speculate that he probably didn't die of hypothermia, but that was like ruled as the cause of death. And then the position of Schenko's body doesn't match the lividity on the back of his neck, torso, and extremities, which means that he was moved after death. But they do think they know why this is. But do you know what lividity is?
No.
When you die, obviously your heart stops, so the blood isn't pumping through your body anymore.
Right.
So the blood just stops and rests.
And pools.
Yeah, wherever it
Okay.
is. So if there's lividity, then that means that's where the blood pooled. So he had lividity on his back, neck, shoulders, that area, which means he died facing up.
Yeah.
But he was found face down.
Face down. Okay.
So, I'll get to that in a second. So Krivo is who was found next to him, and he was wearing light shorts, long johns, one torn sock on his left foot, and no shoes. So he was wearing pretty much nothing.
All of this just sounds so painful.
I know.
Like super painful. Anyone who has been caught in the snow understands. Anyone down south, let me just tell you, it hurts.
Yes, it is so painful. It's burning. It burns.
It's a burn and a very deep bone, like to the bone type of ache.
Yeah.
Brutal.
So Krivo, in his autopsy, it showed that he had bruises on his forehead and butt, his abrasions on the palms of his hands, collarbones, chest, ribs, wrists, legs, including the left hip and the inner left thigh, front of the left thigh, and right shin. He had trauma to the right and left temporal bone, which is your skull behind your ear, and the occipital region, which is the back of your head, with brain bleeding. He had frostbitten ears and fingers. His hands were swollen. There was wounds with jagged edges at the base of his thumb. His ring and pinky fingers had wounds with hard edges and charred surfaces. Skin missing on the back of his left hand. Skin from his right knuckle was found in his mouth, as if he had like bit himself to either stay awake or conscious or to stifle a cry. Something like that. He like bit into his knuckle so hard that it was in his mouth.
Oh.
And he had a swelling left leg and foot with a burn on the entire outer surface of his leg that covered 31 by 10 centimeters or 12 by 4 inches. So
Okay.
a little ruler is 12 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, long.
Yeah.
And there was peeling skin from the back of the left foot. His second toe was charred to a dark brown color, and the tissue was, like, dense to the touch. And his cause of death was hypothermia.
Okay.
So, I don't... Maybe it was hypothermia, I guess. That's what they're saying. But
Yeah.
he had severe head trauma to the point that his brain was bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
The temporal bones, so behind his ear, and his occipital region, the back of his head, had trauma, and his brain was bleeding.
Yeah.
So maybe he's the fucking one that fell out of the tree. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of injuries, and all of the, like, burnt skin and stuff is, you know, speculated of, like, well, maybe he fell asleep next to the fire and put his leg in the fire, or you're so cold that you just want to warm up and you don't realize that you're actually burning yourself.
Yeah.
So different kind of options there, but the medical examiner said that he died of hypothermia.
Okay.
So when I said that the lividity did not match Shenko's body, he obviously had been moved. He died face up, but was found face down. It's speculated that before leaving Shenko and Krivo, because they obviously were the first ones that died, that the remaining members of the group removed some of their clothes and wore them themselves because it's so fucking cold.
Mm-hmm.
Either just easily removing them, or some of them were cut off with a knife because it was easier. But that's why they think Shenko was moved after death. And also the way they were found, which was, like, perfectly laying side by side, it's believed that, like, these two were their friends. Mm-hmm. So it's believed that the members moved them so that they were right next to each other, and, you know, it was kind of like a show of respect or whatever. Plus, They didn't strip them bare. They left them at least with their underwear and their shirt on so that they weren't laying there, like, fucking nude.
Yeah.
So that likely explains why Shenko was moved after death.
Okay.
The third body that was discovered on February 27th was Igor. So he was 300 meters from the cedar tree, headed towards the tent.
Okay.
He was face up, and his complexion was described as bluish red. He was wearing 2 light shirts with a fur sleeveless vest, ski pants over cotton pants, 1 wool sock, and 1 cotton sock. No shoes. The watch on his wrist had stopped at 5:31 a.m. So his autopsy showed that he had abrasions on his forehead, upper eyelids, left eyebrow, both cheekbones, ankles, forearms, palms. He had dried blood in his mouth and on his lips, bruised knees, and hands. And on his hands, the, like, bruises and scrapes were on the knuckles, like where your finger bones meet your hand bones, kind of
so,
like
he punched something?
Yeah, kind of like the injuries you'd get from punching, like a physical fight.
Okay.
And then he had cuts on his right shin, fingers, and palms. And his cause of death was ruled as hypothermia. So the fourth and last body that was discovered that day was Zena's. And she was found 650 meters from the cedar tree. So she was the farthest from the cedar tree and closest to the tent. And she was face down with her head towards the tent. And her complexion was purplish red. And she was wearing 2 hats, 2 shirts, 2 sweaters, 3 pairs of pants, 3 pairs of socks, no shoes. And she was much better dressed than the other guys. So it kind of looks like they're like, well, you're the girl. Like, you can wear, like, the extra sweater or the extra pants because they wanted her to be warmer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it shows that after leaving the cedar tree, these 2, Igor and Zena, were headed back towards the tent. And she did make it the farthest.
Mm-hmm.
So her autopsy shows that she had abrasions on her right forehead, right eyebrow, her eyelids, left cheek, the back of both hands, bruised skin on the right side of her face and this wound with jagged edges and missing skin on the back of her hand. Her fingers were frostbitten. And then on the right side of her lumbar region, like lower back, kind of on the side, there was this long, bright red bruise that was 29 by 6 centimeters, so 11 inches by 2 inches.
And
So-
again with this jagged cut on the hand.
Yeah, the jagged cut on the hands.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know because it's the back of the hands. If it was the palms, it makes sense that you are walking through the snow, which is deep, and you don't have shoes, and maybe you're falling. So
Mhm.
you're like, you would naturally stop your fall with the palm of your hands. These jagged cuts on the back of your hands, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, that's fucking weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So what's weird is this is also this bright red bruise that's on the side
Mhm.
because it's really long and skinny.
Yeah,
So
like someone smacked her with a stick.
yeah, exactly. And that is what was reported in the medical examiner. They said this is a baton shape. So like a
Oh.
stick shape, like something like that.
Like a switch. Yeah, just smacked her with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And her cause of death was hypothermia due to violent accident. I
What?
don't know. Hypothermia due to violent accident.
Why is this? Who the fuck is this medical examiner just playing Clue with us?
Yeah. So what's important from her autopsy is that she had lividity on the front. I wrote this really weird. Okay, on the top surface of her body. Okay. She had lividity on the top of her body when they uncovered her. So
Mhm.
she was found face down. So when they looked at her face down, they saw lividity, which means
Okay.
she actually died face up.
Which explains why she had a red color,
Yeah.
like noticeably red. Yeah.
Yes. But she's 650 meters from the cedar tree, which is 350 meters away from Igor.
Mm-hmm.
She's alone and isolated. There's no reason that somebody would have moved her body unless there was someone else near her that moved her. But
Mhm.
she's alone out there.
Yeah.
So lividity makes no sense in her case.
Yeah.
Fucking mind-blowing. So while these autopsies were being conducted, search parties were still looking for the remaining 5 members of Dyatlov Group. And on March 5th, 6 days after the first 4 were found and 1 day after their autopsies, Rustic's body was found. And his body was covered by 50 centimeters or 19 inches of snow.
Oh, that's deep.
Yeah. But what's weird is that he was found 480 meters from the cedar tree, which means he is in between Igor and Zina.
Huh.
And he's face down with his head towards the tent. So he's second in line, headed back to the tent. And he was wearing 2 shirts, a sweater, 2 pairs of pants, 4 pairs of socks, and 1 felt boot on his right foot. Felt boot, I don't really know if that means like a ski boot that you just like kind of slip on, or if it's literally a felt boot, or if it's like an insole type deal. I don't know, but it's a felt boot.
I'm gonna guess an insole.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I'm gonna guess it's like an insole thing to keep you insulated.
Mm-hmm. So he was also wearing a watch, and his watch stopped at 8:45 a.m. And in his pocket, he had 310 rubles, his passport, a small folding knife, a pencil, a pen, a comb, a box of 48 matches, and 1 cotton sock.
Okay.
His autopsy shows that he had hemorrhages in the temporalis muscles. So that is the muscles inside of your skull on the side of your head.
Okay.
And there was also abrasions on his forehead, both sides of his face. He had a swollen face and lips, bruises on the upper right eyelid, the knuckles on both hands, left arm, left palm, left shin. He had traces of blood discharge from his nose, skin torn from the right forearm, and a skull fracture on the frontal bone in the middle of his head. So kind of above the hairline in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And his cause of death was hypothermia.
But not from a traumatic accident.
No, just hypothermia.
I'm gonna smack this. Okay. Oh, and also I looked it up, just because I didn't want to say it first, but felt boots. It maybe it's in the insole of a ski boot, which would make sense because I think that's felt.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also outdoor boots with felt padding. I actually have one for when I go fly fishing.
That makes sense
But
if you're out in the fucking Siberian forest.
Yeah. The weird thing is you are cautioned if you get felt boots not to use it in the winter
Oh,
because they become incredibly slippery.
really?
Like, felt is
Maybe that's why they have some of their injuries. They're slipping.
yeah, felt is like basically just imagine because it creates friction as it hits the snow. It's porous as well, so it'll suck up that snow, create friction, and turn the sole of your foot to essentially ice.
Yeah.
So then you're just gonna eat shit off the ground. Like I guess it would probably be if anyone had ever walked onto a hockey rink and forgot to take their skate guards off. It's probably like that.
Oh, God.
Yep.
That makes sense. Although, so far, Rustic is the only one to be wearing felt boots, and he's only wearing one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that kind of throws that out the window where I was like, oh, that makes sense why they're all slipping. But
It does make me go, maybe that explains his injury, where he fractured his skull, perhaps. Like,
no, it doesn't.
Oh.
Because the medical examiner
mm-hmm.
suggested that the skull fracture was the result of a blunt object. So he was hit on both sides of his head.
Oh.
The back of his head had no damage. So again, if you're falling, you would typically brace yourself with your palms. You're not going to let the front of your fucking head take all the damage.
Yeah.
But he got hit and then fell.
Okay.
But he was absolutely knocked in the head with something.
Okay.
And the medical autopsy further states that Rustic probably suffered like a loss of coordination due to being hit. And he probably would have been unconscious, so he would have just fallen.
Mm-hmm.
And something else that's interesting is that where he was dug out of, after they uncovered all of the snow and found his body was laying on a bed of ice. So what do you think that means?
I don't know what that means.
That means that when his body fell,
It was water?
he was warm.
Oh, I guess so.
So he wouldn't have just like died slowly of hypothermia.
Yeah.
Walking and slowly collapsed and died of hypothermia. He was on a bed of ice. So he died pretty fast. And when he hit the ground, he was warm. And it made this like bed of ice. So like
none of this is just, you can't get a single thing to make sense in this entire story.
It's mind-boggling. And Rustic also had lividity on the top surface of his body, looking at him when he was found. So he's found face down, which means that he was moved.
Oh my God.
Because if he's found face down and you look at him and he has lividity, he died face up.
Mm-hmm.
But he's moved.
Yeah.
Fucking weird.
It is weird.
Okay, so that's 5 bodies that have been found. And at this point, a legal inquest had started because there's these 5 bodies that are found. And, you should probably start some sort of inquest because you have to figure out how and what happened and all of that. So the medical examiners were obviously certain, or claiming to be certain, that these 5 people had died of hypothermia. And they were very, specific and adamant, saying that there was nothing related to foul play. Don't even worry about it. All 5 died of hypothermia. But there is certain details here that are, raising questions to people. There's Shenko, who had the pulmonary edema, so the fluid in his lungs. Why does he have that if he supposedly just died of hypothermia? And again, there's not enough urine in his bladder. That doesn't make sense.
Yep.
Then there's Krivo, who had bit off a piece of his own knuckle and had 3rd-degree burns on his leg.
Yep.
This dinky little fire that only had remnants of twigs and little sticks and shit. How did he get 3rd-degree burns?
Yep.
His body is ice cold. He would have just put that fire out. Not gonna have 3rd-degree burns. And then Igor was bleeding from his mouth. Zena had that weird linear bruise on her waist and had her cause of death as accidental violence and hypothermia. But no elaboration there.
Yeah.
And then Rustic's head had so much trauma, and that he apparently fell when he was still warm, but he died of hypothermia. It's a mindfuck.
It is a mindfuck. The accidental violence one gets me too, because how do you even know that's accidental? Why are they so certain about that? But they're just anyway.
Everyone else just gets hypothermia.
Yeah, everyone else just gets hypothermia, despite having very clear signs of trauma to the body. And then hers, she's got a switch mark on her lower back, and they're accidental trauma.
Accidental violence.
Yeah, accidental violence.
I don't know.
Hypothermia caused by accidental violence. It's the weirdest shit to me.
I know. So there's 4 more bodies that still have yet to be found. And that's the bodies of Lydia, Coley, Thibault, and Sasha K. But they weren't found until May.
Oh.
And the extent of their injuries were much worse.
Oh, really?
Really. When the snow started to melt, search teams were back at it on May 5th, searching near the cedar tree again. So the search group found some small cut tree branches in the snow that were making a trail. And the search team followed the trail, and as they did, they found pieces of clothing. They followed the trail for 50 meters, which led into a snowdrift. So rescuers began to probe and dig at a depth of 3.5 meters or 11 feet, and they found more cut branches. And these cut branches were making a bed of branches that had some clothes piled on it in spots that were almost making 4 seats.
Okay.
I have a photo.
Okay. Hit me with it.
Here's the photo.
It's in black and white. Forgot.
Well, it's 1959.
Yeah.
So the little bed of...
Well, they are little seats.
Yeah, so then... And there's still 4 people that they have yet to find.
Yeah, listeners, let me just verify. You could definitely stick your butt on that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Your butt would go on that for sure.
And also, listeners, there will be photos posted, so while you are listening to this, you can go and check out our Instagram where there's photos and you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Especially when it comes to where the tent is located to where they were walking and where their bodies are found. And
yeah, orientate yourself.
Yeah. So the where was I?
They were proing at 3.5 feet.
Yeah, I just had to find my notes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yes, they found and the probing is it's literally an avalanche tool. If in case there is an avalanche, you'd use this big probing stick to poke around.
Yeah, accidentally stab one of the survivors in the head with it.
Or one of the dead.
Just go right through them.
I'll tell you about it.
Oh no.
So, the bed of branches there was like making this little, they called it a little den where there was these 4 seats for the remaining members of the Dyatlov group to sit there, and it looked like they had kind of carved out this little space for them. And the den would have been this warm place, at least for the group, in comparison to have been out in the elements. And the only thing is, like, it's empty. You can see that there's just this little bed of sticks and 4 seats. Where's the 4 members that are still missing?
Yep.
So they're still searching and looking, and 15 meters or 49 feet from the den, they found a knife sheath. Okay. Now, the investigation report says, quote, Krivo's knife was found close to the bodies. It was used to cut off branches of young fir trees. But only the sheath was there. People report that there wasn't actually a knife found. So, where's the knife?
Yeah, what the fuck?
And Krivo's relatives said that they never got his knife back, whereas they got his other belongings back, and other members of Dyatlov Group who had a knife, their knife went to their relatives. But Krivo's didn't.
Something's not fucking adding up with this investigation either.
I know, it's painful.
It's brutal. I think I'm just gonna say this, like, based on just it being a fucking mystery and all. I think part of that mystery is thanks to some sort of cover up with this fucking investigation, because it is a shit show. It's like indescriptive, not helpful in any way.
No.
Yeah, it's just fucking weird.
There's definitely a lot of questions, and I think they're really valid questions to be asking. So 20 meters or 60 feet from the den, they're probing away, looking for anything, and a probe 4 meters or 13 feet deep came out with flesh on it.
Oh, ew. Gross.
So, of course, the group...
Disgusting. It's disgusting, Brie.
Disgusting! Which one of you took a shit and didn't flush the toilet? Disgusting!
Fucking one of yes.
So...
That's gotta be... That's some fucking trauma right there, let me tell you.
Yeah.
That guy's gonna need some fucking therapy.
So, of course, the group started to dig, because they're like, uh-oh, that's some flesh.
Oh, God,
and
that's just fucking words no one wants to ever hear.
Yeah, I know, right?
Uh-oh.
You're probing.
Flesh.
And you're only finding sticks and clothing, and then all of a sudden you pull it out, and you're like, what is that?
Oh.
And it's flesh.
The realization, because you'd be like, no.
Hopefully it's just an animal.
Yeah.
So
you'd feel so bad, too.
Yeah.
You'd feel like a total piece of shit, because you'd be like, oh.
I know.
I stabbed someone I'm looking for.
So they started to dig, and they found Lydia's body, and it was in a ravine, and close by, they found 3 other bodies. Quote, on the northwest slope of Hill 880, Hill 880 will be on the maps that are posted.
Okay.
About 50 meters from the cedar, in the stream, we have discovered 4 bodies, 3 men and 1 woman. The body of the woman has been identified as Ludmila Dubinina. Lydia.
Christ. The names are so difficult for this story.
The bodies of the men cannot be identified without removing them from the water. They are buried in snow 2.5 meters deep. She is dressed in a small skull cap and a yellow sleeveless shirt, then a flannel shirt, 2 sweaters, one gray, the other dark, and on her legs are leggings and brown ski trousers. On one foot are 2 woolen socks, and on her right foot is bound half of a beige sweater. On the back of her head and on her back, there are traces of damage from our probe. Her body is decaying. The first man is dressed in a khaki-colored windbreaker. It is not possible to see the head and legs of his body because he is not completely exposed. The other 2 bodies lie in a kind of hug, both with nothing on their heads and some of their hair is missing. They are both dressed in windbreakers, but it is hard to say what else, and it will have to wait until we get them out of the stream. The bodies are decaying, and we have photographed them. They need to be taken out of the stream immediately because they are decaying fast and will soon be lost in the stream, which is very fast. End quote.
Okay. Buh. So it's one of those gross scenes too, where you're just like, oh, they've been in the water a lot.
Yeah, and I saw the photos.
Oh, how are you doing?
They're scary.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. When as soon as they were like, they're missing hair, I'm like, oh, they got.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this quote that I just read is interesting because it specifically mentions that other than Lydia, who's easy to identify because they're only looking for one other woman, the bodies couldn't immediately be identified because there's still 3 men, but they have to figure out who's who.
Right.
One of the searchers is one of the UPI students, and his name is Vladimir. And he recalls that when... Vladimir Azkanadze.
Okay.
So Vladimir recalls that when they dug the bodies out, just uncovered them, Colonel Ortukov, that's the army colonel that was in charge of logistics and helicopter support.
Right.
He was immediately there, and he was easily indicating who was who. And Vladimir said, we were surprised because it was really hard to see, and no one could object or disagree with him.
Okay.
When one of the bodies was uncovered, like, literally, that's it. Just uncovered. Like, no one had time to digest really what they were looking at. One of them had a notebook in one hand and a pencil in the other. And Colonel Ortukov referred to this body as Sasha K and quickly grabbed the notepad and said, nothing's written here. Nothing's written.
That's not the most suspicious shit you could fucking say.
He said, like, oh, damn, he didn't write anything. But this notepad is, the whereabouts of it are unknown. It's never been filed into evidence. No one's seen it again.
Right.
Sus.
I don't know what you mean. This is by the books, literally. It's fine.
So the 4 bodies that were found in this ravine in a stream, they're all laying very close together across the stream, except for Lydia, who was more downstream with her head laying on this like natural ledge, kind of like there's this tiny little waterfall, and she's leaning into the waterfall. So she's like kneeling with her chest and torso up against the ledge and her head on where the stream is coming down.
Okay.
Whereas the 3 men were laying across the stream above her.
Okay.
So in her autopsy, she had soft tissue missing around both of her eyes, and her eyebrows are missing. Ribs 2, 3, 4, and 5 are broken on her right side, and ribs 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are broken on her left side. She had massive hemorrhaging in the heart's right atrium. Her eye sockets are empty, so her eyeballs are missing. The nose cartilage is broken and flattened. Her lips are missing, so her teeth and her jaw are exposed. And her tongue is missing, and the muscle on the floor of her mouth is missing.
Okay.
Her cause of death is stated as hemorrhage into right atrium of the heart, multiple fractured ribs, and internal bleeding.
Oh. Jesus Christ.
That's what I mean when I saw the photos. It was scary.
Brutal.
She got no eyes.
Yeah.
It was just holes. I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'm not posting them, though. You can find it.
No, do not. You
if
get
you want
kicked
to.
out. And also, yeah, just sucks.
So, important notes about her autopsy is that when she was found, and how I described how she's kind of like propped against a ledge in the stream, her mouth was open. So water would have been continuously running through her mouth, which could be the reason that her tongue is missing and the bottom of her mouth, the muscles and stuff inside. But some people do dispute this because in the medical reports, there's noted that in her stomach, there was 100 grams or half a cup of dark brown mucosal mass. So some say that this is blood, and it's an indication that her heart was beating when her tongue was ripped out.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Dude, I fucking hope not.
I hope not either.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, maybe there's got to be other reasons that mass could be there, right? Like, you know.
Internal bleeding, maybe?
Yeah, and also, like, dying in the water like that. I don't know. There's several things. Anyway. There's other ways. I'm just going to stick with that. Like, I don't want to imagine that someone ripped her tongue out.
Oh, me neither.
But the other thing, too, is, like, there's a lot of, like, wildlife that come to water.
Yeah.
And
but they're buried under snow.
Yeah. But I mean, like, but when they were dying, like, when they died, like, maybe recent after their death, like, something could have, like, scavenged.
But this is in May when the snow levels are lower than they were in February. So I don't really know. I don't know.
Yeah. I just know, like, I usually when, like, someone says, like, well, the eyes are missing and, like, the tongue's missing and stuff, like, I usually just by default go to, like, that's a very scavenger type of, like, damage to the body.
I agree. It could be multiple things. Her just being in the water, exposed scavengers. But then it's like, well, why not everyone's eyes and tongue?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because they're all together. I'll tell you what, not everyone's eyes and tongue are missing.
Yeah. Something about that's really fucking off. And I know that maybe it's just because she was facing upstream.
Yeah.
Like, as the water was coming onto her face, I could definitely see that, but, like, like, maybe it was just that. I mean, that would make a lot of sense. But, like, goddamn.
That's why I'm trying to be with this. Just deliver the information as it is. Because there's so many cases of people covering this and just being like, and she was found with her tongue ripped out. And that's it. That's what they say.
Yeah, you gotta really take that one with it.
But
that's irresponsible.
I'm telling you, her tongue was definitely missing. I'm not saying it was ripped out, but these are the reasons. It's because she could be, her face is in the water. There's water continuously running through her mouth for months. Could be scavengers. There's the theory that there was blood in her stomach, so maybe that means it was ripped out while she was still alive. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to just, continue that narrative of, like, sensationalizing a death that's already creepy and mysterious.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to just be like, it was ripped out. Anyway.
Yeah, especially when people are trying to figure out what the fuck happened.
Yeah, I want people to try and figure out what the fuck happened because this is fucking weird.
I'm just saying this screams like the bullshittery that goes on and it went on in the USSR.
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Right down to the colonel being like, nothing's written here.
Oh damn, he didn't write anything down. Nothing to see here. No one gets this. Not evidence. Sus.
I wasn't here. Bye. I need to go return some videotapes. Everyone's like, what the fuck's a videotape?
It's 1959, Colonel. Gets into a DeLorean.
That'll make sense later. You're not ready for it. Your kids are going to love it.
Ooh, didn't see anything. Okay, so in front of Lydia in the stream, the body in front of her was Thibaut's. So Thibaut wore 2 hats, a shirt, a sweater, a fur jacket, underwear, 3 pairs of pants. That's not right. Pants. Fix that. Socks and a pair of felt boots. So he had a pair of felt boots on.
Okay.
In his pockets, he had gloves, 3 coins, a comb, and several pieces of paper. But I believe they were blank. I don't think anything is written on them.
Thank you,
Nothing
Colonel.
to see here.
Thank you very much.
He wore 2 watches on his left arm. One stopped at 8:14 a.m. and the other at 8:39 a.m. Now, initially, people are like, why the fuck is he wearing 2 watches? It's really weird. Who wears 2 watches? But it's like 99% sure that one of these watches belonged to Krivo, and he was one of the first to die at the
Yeah.
fire with Shenko. And it's likely that Thibault took the watch off of Krivo because even outside of this trek, they were really good friends. And if Krivo had to do something and his watch was in the way, like, I don't know, chopping wood, doing dishes, whatever, he would often give his watch to Thibault to wear for safekeeping. So in this fucking devastating circumstance where one of your best friends has just died, it makes sense that he took the watch as like remembrance or as a keepsake or to take it back to the family.
That was like very common.
Even think about like in war.
Yeah, that was very
Take the
common.
dog tags off of someone so that you can bring it home.
Yeah, they did that with the dog tags and the watches specifically.
Oh, and with watches?
Yeah, which was why like you'd always hear stories of
this watch
people being
was in my ass.
Yeah. Well, like, yeah, no, seriously, that's where that would come from, is like how important the watch was.
Yeah.
And like that's why also the stories about people during war where like there would always be that one rat in the platoon who would fucking take like dead people's watches and he'd have like several on his arm or something.
Oh my god.
Because he was gonna pawn them off or something.
I didn't
later.
even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that was the ultimate like disrespectful thing. Well, one of the ultimate disrespectful things you could do. But yeah, watches were sentimental back then. Yeah. Pocket watches.
That makes sense too, because they were saying in one of the articles I was reading that they knew it wasn't Shenko's watch because Shenko was poor and he couldn't afford a watch and he never had a watch. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. So I just thought that was kind of sweet that Thibault was like, my boy, I'm sorry. I'll take this watch. But sadly, Thibault's dead too.
Yeah, because it was definitely like an heirloom thing.
It's just sad all around. Oh my god. So, yes, that's likely why Thibault had two watches. So before anyone gets all weird about that, it was 99% sure it was Krivo's watch.
I kind of want to hear whatever conclusion they drew because he had a second watch.
It was known that Krivo put that watch up his ass and it shouldn't have been found. That's a Pulp Fiction joke, by the way, if you don't know, because I'm not just talking about shoving stuff up people's asses.
Right, sure.
Not this time. So in Thibault's autopsy, it was found that he had multiple fractures to the skull, the sides, the front, and the base of his skull, and there was bruises on his upper left lip. That's the extent of the autopsy.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. So the cause of death was major skull damage and head trauma. So Thibault's head trauma is severe, but there's no notes by the medical examiner as to like what this might have been.
So this is just bare, like this was...
The medical examiner said that there was no noted damage to the soft tissue. So if you were like blunt force trauma,
Right.
you would have abrasions, bruises, whatever to your tissue and your skull. But he didn't have that apparently on the soft tissue. It's just his skull.
So so just the skull was
And
fractured. Somehow.
the medical examiner noted that the skull, the damage to his head was equivalent to that of like a really brutal car accident. But then he didn't speculate as to what might have happened to him out there. He just said, oh yeah, that's why he died.
I hate when autopsies raise way more questions and don't answer anything.
Exactly. And the
Like-
trauma to his head was so bad that he would have been hit in the head with, or whatever happened, and he would have been immediately unconscious and severely concussed, and he would not have been moving on his own. So he had to have either died right there in the stream or somebody dragged him or carried him there.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right.
Watching the gears turn.
Yeah, no, man, like it just doesn't make any fucking sense. But like, I don't know. If I just paused for a second because I was like, well, like I would bet these bodies were dumped, if anything, in a fucking stream.
Because
You don't just die on the fucking stream.
not all four of you together.
No, like
Lydia's
someone gets
position
out.
is so bizarre.
Yeah, that really, I just do not know how to process that. Just on a ledge. looking into the water.
A picture that's like an artist rendering,
Mm-hmm.
just to see the positions, so you don't have to see their gross dead bodies. This is it. Dyson's looking at the photo I showed him.
What the fuck? You're right. Like, it just doesn't...
So I'm trying to when I'm trying to describe Lydia, do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Kneeling in the water on like a little ledge of like a mini waterfall or something, so that her head is propped at the top of it, but then in front of her is the three men laying all together.
And their like head is in like the very like the very like depth of the fucking stream. Like, I don't even know how to like, they're in the dead center of the stream.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, that's fucking weird.
I know.
Yeah, none of that makes sense.
It's so fucking bizarre. And just creepy. Honestly, it's just all creepy.
Yeah, because it looks so fucking staged.
Yes.
But like, the only thing is like, who stages someone looking upstream crouched like that?
I don't know.
That's creepy as
I
fuck.
know. It is so creepy. Okay, so 30 centimeters or 11 inches upstream from Tebow is Coley's body. So the three men across the stream, Coley's in the middle. Coley was wearing 2 shirts, 2 sweaters, an unzippered, burnt, ripped ski jacket, shorts, 3 pairs of pants, fire-damaged wool socks, 3 cotton socks on one foot, 4 on the other, no shoes. Now, the fire damage, burnt, whatever, clothes are likely because they were taken off of the others' bodies.
Mm-hmm.
But now as I'm saying that, I'm like, wait, so they were burned before they were even dead? But is that because they were so cold they didn't know that they were like burning their shit? They didn't like pass out with their extremities in the fire?
I think they... I don't know.
I feel
Like, I think that they maybe just, like, either...
their feet were so fucking cold, they just wanted to heat them up on this tiny little fire, but didn't realize they were burning their feet and shit.
Yeah, or they, like... Or they moved them near the fire in hopes that they would heat up more. Because it
Yeah.
was so small and they didn't realize, like, that's gonna fucking radiate heat.
Yeah.
And it just scorched the jacket
Mhm.
as well. I'm banking on that. Like, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. I don't think that... I think they were in such a bad situation already that they were moved that close to the fire.
Mhm.
I don't think they were even able to, like, position themselves closer to the fire, because that takes a lot of effort, and they were pretty worse for wear.
Yeah. That makes sense. In Coley's pockets, he had a key, a safety pin, some blank paper, 2 packages of pills, which says soda and codeine.
Okay.
The 50s man. And a box of matches that were like soaked because they've been in a fucking stream.
Yeah. I'm shocked the fucking pills survived. Well, I guess they were in a glass jar, right?
They're in like those silver sheets where they're like in the little bubbles that you like pop out.
Blister packs.
Blister packs, thank
Yeah.
you. The sheets with bubbles. Blister packs, yes. Coley's autopsy showed that there was a lack of tissue around his eyes. His eyebrows were missing. Skull bones were exposed. He had an open wound behind his ear, a broken nose, a deformed neck, and trauma to the left knee.
A deformed neck.
Yes, but his cause of death was hypothermia.
Oh, we're back to that again.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Now, you said deformed neck, and that is really fucking weird, right?
Mhm.
That the medical examiner is like, he has a broken nose and a deformed neck and this open wound behind his ear.
I hate this medical examiner,
But
man.
he didn't elaborate on any of it. He just said deformed neck and a broken nose
Like-
and this trauma behind his ear, and then that was that. He didn't even speculate in any way or hypothesize or nothing.
And also, like, what the fuck is, like, his description? Like, a broken bone is a broken bone. That's an objective thing. A deformation of an appendage
Deformed
can be
neck.
not broken or broken. Like, I can technically deform my fingers to bend.
Yeah.
They're
yeah,
deforming,
yeah.
but they're not breaking.
That's such a good point.
Like, so deformed neck. Like, what was he?
Yeah.
He just turned. Was he sleep weird?
Was it
like,
slit? Is it broken? Is it strained? Is it bent? Is it cut?
yeah.
What?
Was it just an awkward position? And you could say deformed neck to explain pooling of the blood on the left side of his neck, or was his neck broken?
Yeah, it's deformed.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Well, that's a.
I
shit
didn't
job.
elaborate or say. Whereas, like in these other autopsies at the beginning, like Igor, for example, in those autopsy notes, it says like he has these certain abrasions to his hand, and it describes like these cuts are likely from some sort of hand-to-hand combat, physical confrontation, or fighting, or punching. Like there's speculation on the wounds that is like an Occam's razor situation of like, well, usually 1 + 1 is 2. But in these more recent ones, the bodies found now in May, there's like nothing. It's just bare minimum. Here you go. I don't have time to speculate on what this is. Deformed neck. Don't ask questions.
I almost feel like the doctor was like doing the autopsy. He was just trying to cover his own ass. So he just, instead of like speculating and then perhaps getting wrong, like being wrong, just refused to speculate at all and leave the bare minimum amount of information about it, just so that they can't come back to him saying like this was incorrect or it wasn't good. Like, I wonder if it's that, because like, they were, a lot of this shit was like really ridiculous back then. Like, people were like paranoid about their jobs, getting like bad reputation with the government or something, and then like shit hits the fan. So I'm wondering if he was just covering his own ass, going like, I'm gonna like be very obscure about this.
I don't know, because the first 5 autopsies of Shenko, Krivo, Igor, Zina, and Rustic, they were done by this medical examiner and another guy together. But for these 4 recent bodies found, it was just one of the guys that was told to do it. They were like, the other dude, no, don't worry about it. Just this one guy.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's super weird. I don't know. I feel like there was a reason, like it was intentionally being like just opaque about everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the last body is Sasha K. And Sasha K's body was right behind Coley, and him and Coley were in this like hugging, like spooning position. Whether it was like a protective stance that Sasha K was taking on Coley, or the sort of like spooning you do to keep warm. It's kind of like that position.
Yeah.
They were like right.
It definitely looks like a keep warm position. Yeah.
Sasha K was wearing 2 hats, a scarf, shorts, a long sleeve shirt, a black sweater, a coat, underwear, 3 pairs of pants, socks, and leather shoes. In his pockets, he had a copy of a newspaper, coins, and a compass. And around his neck, he was wearing a camera. But the film was damaged because he's in a fucking stream. But like, why did Sasha K leave the tent with a camera?
Yeah, and also like that raises so many questions for me, because like if someone did do this, you would have thought they'd take the camera or the film. When
I didn't write this down, but obviously this whole time that they're looking for the Dyatlov Group, they're constantly talking and consulting with Yuri, apparently, just to be like, what route would they take? Is this normal? Or did you hear about this or whatever? And Yuri says that he never remembered him having this camera.
Weird.
Yeah. So like obviously Yuri's memory could be flawed. No one's memory is perfect.
Right, like you didn't pick up every single absolute detail about everyone's luggage around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he just says like, oh, that's weird. I don't remember that one. There was a few cameras around, but it was usually the same couple of people taking photos. The cameras belonged to them or whatever. But this camera, I don't remember ever seeing this camera. but it was around his neck. And it's like in the photo I saw of his body, like he's wearing it around his neck. It's obvious that there's a camera.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just fucking weird.
Yeah, that's super strange.
Camera. Okay. His autopsy. He had soft tissue missing around his left eyebrow, an open wound on the right side of the skull with exposed bone. His eyeballs are missing.
Mm-hmm.
And he has broken ribs 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on his right side with 2 fracture lines. And his cause of death was flail chest.
What?
Yeah, I had to Google it because I was like, what the fuck is a flail?
Yeah, what is a flail? For a second, I thought you were going to see flayed, and I was like,
No.
nope, I don't
No.
want to hear that.
No,
Okay,
no.
what is a flailed chest?
Quote, defined as 2 or more contiguous rib fractures with 2 or more breaks per rib, is one of the most serious of these injuries and is often associated with considerable morbidity and mortality. It occurs when a portion of the chest wall is destabilized, usually from severe blunt force trauma.
So he got smashed in the chest.
Smashed.
Yeah.
That his ribs on his right side were basically shattered. And his chest wall destabilized.
Oh, yeah. Remember what I used to tell you? Like, remember I used to tell you, like, when you're a lifeguard, like, and you go to save someone, if they get a hold of you, like, you have to do, like, a very, like, mean kind of punch to the chest to get them off because they could drown you. And it's like an open chest, and there's that hollow bone in the center that keeps your chest together. So it sounds like maybe that broke.
Yeah, but it was all the injuries were on his right side.
Oh, God.
Destabilized chest wall, no thank you.
No, that's fucking awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these 4 autopsies were different than the first 5. The first 5 were very, very thorough. They, like I was saying, had like these speculation on certain wounds or whatever, but these last 4 that were found, they were not thorough, they were not detailed. There wasn't like these educated sort of medical hypotheses going on.
No, this is literally like the guy just had a look at them and was like, okay, this is what everyone else would have already been able to discern.
Okay, I
Because,
have
like-
to do this paperwork. Fine, I'll fill in bare minimum.
Yeah, like what I see as soon as I look at them, and then what broken bones do they have, because at the point of decay, that would be noticeable at some point.
Right.
Unreal.
It's interesting because both Sasha K and Lydia had similar severe injuries with the damages to their chest. So the injuries are similar in position and force, so their ribs are broken. But it's important to note that physically they are different. They are different heights, they are different weights. So if this one accident happened or something, whether it was like something tumbling at them, an avalanche, whatever, it would have impacted them differently because they are different statures. But they have the same injury. The only difference is that Lydia has it on both sides and Sasha has it on one side. And that suggests that it wasn't one uniform event. It was 2 separate events where this trauma was inflicted on their bodies.
Yeah.
And both of them had that massive hemorrhaging in their chest cavity.
Mm-hmm.
And the medical examiner didn't officially speculate on what might have caused these injuries. But this is so bizarre. He said, quote, "These wounds, especially appearing in such a way without any damage to the soft tissue of the chest, are very similar to the type of trauma that results from the shockwave of a bomb."
Oh, no. I mean,
No soft tissue damage, but your ribs are shattered
Yeah.
and your chest wall.
oh my God, you know what?
Your chest wall is
I just realized something too. Remember when you were like, well, the foam in the mouth?
yeah.
That I saw there was like a video on that was making the rounds on Reddit and shit, and it was like it was with a news article about Russia saying this is evidence of Ukraine using chemical warfare or whatever, and it's debunked. It's debunked, okay? Because that's not true. And what really happened, because you see this guy shooting by a wall, and then there's a blast. And then the guy turns away from the hole in the wall, and he takes like a step, collapses, and then he's on his back, and foam, white grayish foam, starts coming out of his mouth as he's convulsing. And it's from a severe concussion by the blast, because the fire, like the explosion didn't hit him. The concussive nature of the blast hit him. And that can turn you to jelly from the inside out. So that would explain a fractured bone, like skull fragments and stuff, without actually damage to the face.
Tissue damage.
It's concussive blast.
Oh
but
my
also,
god!
What I didn't realize was, holy shit, I've seen this before, where someone's gotten a concussive blast that would fuck up your chest without leaving marks, and then you would start foaming at the mouth.
And that was Shenko that had the pulmonary edema, where there's the like fluid coming up, and he had the gray fluid all coming out of his mouth and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Shenko, I'm just double checking in my notes here. With the footprints leading away, it showed that there was a tall person in the back of the group. And I'm pretty sure that it was Shenko and Sasha K that were the tallest. So Shenko could have been like in the back.
Yep.
And got like the brunt of whatever happened.
Yeah.
And yes, it was Shenko and Sasha K that were the tallest.
Yeah, that's wild. That would make so much sense with a blast, actually, because
Ew, that's terrifying.
yeah, but then it doesn't make any sense about them being positioned in the water and shit like that.
Well, it could be like some sort of testing shit going on in the mountains or whatever, and you have all kinds of military personnel in these areas, with whether it's like with the gulags or with whatever other things that is totally Soviet Russia.
Yeah, or the fact that like everyone was watching out for their ass, but like, you know, I know there's people that go like, well, an avalanche, that's their theory. Well, like, I don't think that, but maybe they're not that far off. Maybe it was controlled explosions to offset the threat of an avalanche, because they blow up the mountain, right? To do like preemptive avalanches. But that blast could have been from that. I don't know. And then it could have killed these people doing this. And then whoever was running the blast was like, fuck, I don't want to go to the fucking gulag. Just make it weird. Put them
Fuck, why were these people camping on the side of the mountain?
where there's no trail. Yeah. Like they're literally in like the back country of the mountain where you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So many theories.
Yeah.
I'm
just glad I found one that I feel like I could maybe grab onto.
I'm just so grossed out by the idea that your body is turned to jelly from the inside because of these like shockwave.
Yeah, shockwave. Yeah.
And you have the gray white foam that comes out, which is what was coming out of Shenko.
Yeah, and that would be from a severe concussion. So like he survived the blast, but like his body was like
Yeah. Rattled.
Like you don't want that. That's not good.
And that's what this medical
tinnitus and everything that comes with that. Like you're
God.
not a happy camper.
I have tinnitus.
Yeah.
It's not from a shockwave bomb, I don't think. So
I don't think so either.
That's what this medical examiner has said. Buddy won't fucking speculate or put anything in writing about what happens, but at some point he had said to somebody in relation to these injuries, these wounds, especially with Sasha K and Lydia, just had the damage to their chest and that.
Mm-hmm.
These wounds, especially appearing in such a way without any damage to the soft tissue, are similar to the type of trauma with results from the shockwave of a bomb.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something interesting. Lydia and Coley's clothes tested positive for high levels of radiation. And now certain levels of radiation are normal.
Right.
And their bodies, and therefore their clothes, were in a constant stream of running water. And there were still high levels, even though they're being essentially like rinsed. And then when you take clothes to go and test them for radiation, you initially test them and then you do this natural like sort of rinsing cleaning process and test them again just to kind of get, I'm not explaining this scientifically at all,
Yeah.
but just to see, oh, is this a normal level or something to be worried about? So these clothes that had already been for months being constantly rinsed in running water, on only 2 of them had high levels of radiation.
That's fucked.
I know.
Oh, I was initially going like, well, you know, it all went out the window as soon as you said they took the clothes. But I was like, remember when I was talking about my episode with the UFOs, and there was the one where they found the spot, the flat plateau where the UFO supposedly took off, and the Canadian government did like a sweep of the land, and they're like, fuck, it's radioactive, and they all panicked, and they were going to quarantine, and then they found out that there was actually like a deposit in the ground, like a rock deposit that would be like like not uranium, but like an offset of it. That's technically radioactive, but not like harmful.
Plutonium?
No, I don't think so. But like Russia's got that. They have more than we do.
Oh, they have so much.
Yeah. So like they would have more streams of that. So I was like, oh well, you know.
But all 4 of them are in.
They take the fucking coats away.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, this is super radioactive. Then
only
that's
on 2
not
of
normal.
them.
Yeah,
There's
fucking
4
weird.
bodies there, and only 2 of them are radioactive. And it was Lydia's hat specifically and Coley's pants that were highly
wild.
radioactive.
What the fuck?
I know.
Yo, what was going on? Were they testing like mini nukes, like the size of grenades, or what's going on?
I don't know.
I feel like you'd see a blast site or something.
I know.
But then again, it was snowing and it's on a mountain.
And also they're going to these
looking?
very isolated areas to search. They have direction from Yuri and other people who were like, well, this is where they would have been going. So they're not flying all over God's green earth to try and find stuff where there could have been a blast.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't see it. Also, it's mountains. You know, maybe you just don't even see because there's another ridge and a fucking other mountain, and it could have been in between those 2 mountains, but fucked you up on the other. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, there could have been a lot of things going on.
So, all 9 bodies are now recovered. We have a medical examiner that has examined them and, you know, determined that Shenko, Krivo, Igor, Zina, Rustic, and Coley have died from hypothermia, whereas Lydia, Thibault, and Sasha K have died from fatal traumas and injuries to their bodies. And all 9 have apparently died 6 to 8 hours after their last meal. Don't know. That's just based on food content in the stomach.
Yeah.
Now, Vladimir, if you'll remember, was one of the UPI students who was volunteering that saw creepy colonel, like, nothing to see here in the notepad. He also mentioned, Vladimir did, that he felt very strongly that those in charge were not interested at all in a proper investigation. Everything was very rushed and the atmosphere was very tense. And he remembers that the lead investigator, a man named Lev Ivanov, quote, did not even approach the bed of branches. He didn't take any pictures. It seemed that they already had a theory.
Right. Okay.
And then if you'll remember that there was a criminal investigation into what happened after the first 5 bodies were found. They were like, okay, we have to put a criminal investigation into place. And the investigation was being carried out by this Lev Ivanov guy. He was a prosecutor, and he was the one that was in charge of this. But we will get into the investigation next week. Because I think I have given everyone enough to think about for now.
Yeah, you guys got a thick boy for this one. This is a 2-hour episode.
It is?
Yeah.
I condensed it as best as I could.
You know what, man? Like you know how people listen to podcasts, right? They just want it on. They enjoy having like something well detailed and everything. It's a gift, right? Like your favorite podcast. If you found out it was 2 hours, you're like fucking sick.
I want people to actually listen to it though. So if you have to listen to it in parts, that's okay. So, yeah, we will talk about the investigation, where it went, what the conclusion is on what happened to Dyatlov Group, and then we will talk about the theories, because not everyone agrees on what the official investigation outcome was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all next week. And then throughout this episode, I have walked you through the scene, the places involved, the state of the bodies, and I want you all to really think about it. I want you to think about what makes sense to you and what doesn't, and then based on what you've heard, what do you genuinely believe happened to Dyatlov Group that fateful night? I think I gave all the information I could while still being concise, yet it was still 2 hours. And then next week, when you hear the theories, you can see if your theory fits in with what the, mainstream, big, popular theories are.
Okay.
That's not true. There's going to be so many theories. So this episode has obviously been long as hell. So, thank you for listening and sticking it out with us. And I planned on doing 3 parts, and it's turning out that it will be 3 parts. So even though this one's been long, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you follow us on Instagram at Dark Adaptation Podcast. That's where there's photos related to this case and all of the cases we cover. And then make sure that you send us case suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can get a deep dive like this on what you suggest. And please support the show however you can, whether that's simply by rating, reviewing, subscribing. That is so helpful. You can also go to our website. You could buy us a coffee or check out our merch store. It's all appreciated. And next week, we will catch you on the dark side for the final part of Tragedy at Dyatlov Pass.
Dos Bidonia, comrades.
До свидания.